All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Stories from Mountain Town. This is your host, Tyler, and today with me I have the artist formerly known as Borbay. Borbay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Could you tell the nice people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, where to start? I grew up on Long Island, and I went to college in Boston. Then I moved to New York City and spent 13 years there, and I did everything from reality TV to stand-up comedy. I worked at the Trump Organization on the same floor with the former president. Then I went into recruiting, and then I went into advertising, and then I was in Hawaii with my then-girlfriend, now wife, realizing I wasn't living my true life. So I decided to leave it all behind, become an artist. So I became a full-time artist on July 2nd of 2009.
Awesome.
Never been represented by a gallery, never had an art dealer, just studied all myself. And a fortuitous commission brought me out to the Tetons and fell in love, and we made our way out here. We've been in Victor, Idaho since 2016.
That's awesome. You've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I like to pride myself on having a very strange and diverse background.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what you're most known as is you're a painter, right? That's
Correct.
Your medium. Yeah. And I got connected with you, or just saw you through Jackson Hole Steelworks, Chaz and Trav. You were a past Spirit of Wyoming contest winner, right? 2017.
Correct.
Yeah, and I was just looking it up a second ago. It's the jackalope in front of the Tetons.
That's right.
Such a great piece. That was awesome.
Yeah, I know a lot of the diehard loyalists are like, oh, here's this guy from New York doing a jackalope in front of the Tetons. But I mean, it was just so whimsical, and I had to go for it. And Chaz and Travis are like family. I love those guys. I play hockey with Travis. They're just amazing dudes, and that we got connected to them is no surprise at all.
Yeah, was he there tonight?
Oh, no. So he's on my team over in Victor, and I was playing on a team called the Sawzalls over in Jackson tonight.
Oh, okay. Cool. Are there a lot of, is it like men's league, kind of like beer league, or is it like pretty competitive?
100% beer league. It is competitive. A lot of guys, when they step down from playing on the Moose, they'll jump on a team. But like the better guys here, like everybody in the Tetons are like incredibly fit, so they're all really good.
Yeah.
And we played tonight against a guy named Wes, and Wes is like probably 6'7", and then you put him on skates, and he's a giant man, and so even if I try to full tilt the skate into him, I just bounce right off of him.
Yeah.
But it's great hockey. It's beer league. We have a fun league over in Victor at Kotler Arena, and we play over at Snow King here in Jackson.
Yeah, awesome. A lot of those dudes from the Moose, like 90% of the team is from Minnesota.
That's right.
They're like dudes that grew up like around where I grew up, and I text my buddies from home who did play hockey, and they're like, oh, yeah, I played with him on this whatever traveling team thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, like Drew is just a superstar on the team, goal-scoring machine. And, I know you're from Minnesota. My wife's from Minnesota, and we got married in her parents' backyard. So I have a lot of good connections back there, and I've gotten to do some cool things through my brother-in-law, also named Jason. And, go see some amazing games and big sports out there. Yeah,
definitely. So let's tell them what we're drinking today.
Yes,
it's
of course.
Kind of part of it. So Snake River Brewing, we're doing more of those specialty release beers we had last time, and I think they actually named them. I saw them make a social media post, and they named it something, and they, but fantastic. And I think even the local is selling it somehow, which I was confused about because they said they couldn't sell it because of this label. But either way, go check them out. They're still in renovation. Have you seen the renovation at all?
I haven't seen the renovation. In fact, last time I went over there, I wanted to grab some stuff. They were closed. I was heartbroken. But so Paco's my favorite beer of all time.
Yeah.
And
we got some here.
Paco's is tight. So what happened was I was visiting with this collector. He flew me out to Teton Village to get inspiration for a painting. So I ended up doing the Cowboy Bar neon on the Mormon Row barn with like kind of fractal light in the sky. It was super cool. But on the second day I was here,
let's just pull it up. That's what this is for.
That's right. So we went out for a sledding adventure. So we did an 80-mile sledding adventure. So about 60 miles in, I'm feeling like super confident, which was a huge mistake. So I tried to gun it to like 60. We ended up going down the road and we came around a bend, and I didn't see it. It was a subtle change. No, it's probably further down. This goes back. I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I flipped my sled going 60 miles an hour. And,
oh, man.
I had a helmet on, and I flew into the snow, and I was like, oh, gosh, am I dead? Like, I didn't know if I was dead or anything. And then I got up, and it was up to my chest, and so I fell out. The sled was slipped, didn't break it, fortunately. And I went back thinking how lucky I was to be alive to my friend's place, and I went and I had my first Paco. So Paco's is my favorite beer because I love the taste, but it's also my favorite beer because it was like the first beer I had after I thought I killed myself. So yeah, it's a special brew.
Definitely. It's a Jackson classic. So many people that come into town that come to visit us, they bring like a 6-pack home, or like if I'm going home, they'll like bring home Pacos.
I mean, if I ever moved out of the Tetons, which I don't have any plans of doing that, I would literally have to work out a connection to get Pacos because there's nothing else really like does it for me, Yeah. And I'm not just saying that. That's like for real.
Yeah,
like,
that's
Pacos
awesome.
is my jam.
That's awesome. You're the perfect podcast guest then.
Snake River Brewing, send some to Borbay Co.
Yeah, awesome, dude. Your style, and I don't know if we're getting a little bit older. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, grain belt, baby.
The grain belt sign.
Oh, you know what's up with that.
That's awesome, dude. Your style is just so different than every artist out here. And you're now. So I think you're the 4th painter now on. Right? We had Haley Badenhop,
fabulous.
Connor. How do you say his last name? Lillestrom,
yeah, I think so. It's sweet. I spent time in Sweden. I apologize, Connor, if I got that
wrong. Yeah. And then Steve Knox, the current label art winner.
They're all beauties.
Styles.
They're all beauties.
But yours, dude, the way you use, like, if people who are just listening, go look up Borbay.com. His style is like he'll paint like normal whatever scenes. This one we're looking at right now is a cowboy on a horse in front of the Tetons. That'd be a normal scene for painters out here. But then he goes and like outlines certain aspects of the horse and cowboy in what looks like a neon light. Like, so it's like a sign, like a neon sign. This one actually looking like the $1 Million Cowboy Bar.
Yes.
And it's so cool how you do that. And it's so different than so many of the painters out here. And it's awesome. I love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. As an artist, I'm susceptible to flattery. So
yeah. And I love, this one is my favorite of all of your paintings that I've seen.
Thank you.
We're looking at, it's the 12th hole at Augusta National in like, is it a famous picture or another painting that from this angle that is super famous?
So yeah, Hogan's Bridge, very, very famous. Yes. The 12th hole Golden Bell is super famous. And so when we moved out here, we relocated to Teton Springs, which is now the Bronze Buffalo Sporting Club at Teton Springs. It went
did
through
that
a
just change?
It did. And they're doing some cool things. It's awesome out there. And so I was never a golfer. I was the guy who'd go and like go to a bachelor party and I'd be 6 holes in, then I'm just driving around slamming beers and I stop playing because I would be like 12 on every hole and I'm like done.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't beat them, join them. So I got really into golf and I'm still awful. Like I'm awful. Like I've had some good rounds, but I could go out any given day and shoot. Like I really try and shoot like a 110, right?
Yeah.
But since I lived there, I got into it and I love to paint and I love to golf. And so I decided that they had the Fall Masters in November, which was so rare. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to paint Golden Bell. So I did it live and I was streaming and that was something I adapted
sweet.
So when COVID hit, I decided to do watching paint dry. So I was doing live streams from the studio daily.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm a slob all the time, but I'm a crazy slob in the studio. Pajama pants, like gross shirts, like coffee hair everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't change that to go stream, and I know sex appeal is important.
Yeah.
And I just don't have any. And so, but I go and I paint. So I was streaming this and a collector bought it on the second stream out of 4 streams. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I don't do paintings just to sell them. I do paintings because I'm passionate about them and I love them. But it was really cool that I sold it. And, the collector's a beauty and like it's a couple. I love them. And it was just really cool to have that painting out there. And, and then so I did it again for this spring. And, I did number 13. I did Azalea.
Yeah. Is that done here?
Yeah, it should be on there somewhere. And and then the same couple pulled the trigger on that. So you could see it all changes, like even from like 4 or 5 months down the road, everything is different. But
yeah,
I mean, I think that, I do my collage painting portraits. I do my neons. I'm starting to do golf paintings. I do 20-year Guggenheim series. And I really believe as an artist, you have to keep doing different things to push yourself and identify new styles, new capabilities. Otherwise, you're not growing.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard Guggenheim. What does that really mean? I've heard of it. I don't know anything else about it.
So the Solomon R. Guggenheim is a building that was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in gosh, I want to say the 50s, 60s. I don't remember when it came up, and I apologize to the Guggenheim historians. But it was the first
of which there are many listening. Obviously,
there are legion. I know they're like, wait a second, this guy, they're gonna fact check me.
Yeah.
They're like, this idiot doesn't even know what he's painting.
We're gonna get canceled.
But so I lived on the Upper East Side for years. So in 2009, my first professional painting was of the Guggenheim, and I did it. I used to stand out my easel on the street to just get attention, right? So people come over, talk to me, and then I can kind of network with them and show them my work. And it's like a very friendly, non-sexualized honey trap scenario. And so I did it, and I sold it. Literally, my brother, I was like, walk back and forth and say, I must have this canvas, because he was visiting. And anyway, I sold it to this family from Italy, and then I wanted to do it again the next year, but it felt too opportunistic. So I decided I was going to do one every year for 20 years. So it's on 89th and 5th. It's a Frank Lloyd Wright masterpiece. He did the Falling Water House out in Pennsylvania, like just prolific, incredible, very unique architect. So yeah, I'm coming up on year 13. What's more lucky than the year after COVID than to do your 13th painting in a series?
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm going to paint it. The pandemic Guggenheim that we're looking at right now, I did in one session with my left hand, primarily with a palette knife. And the funny thing is they had an exhibition about sustainable farming and sustainable growth. So this shape right here is actually a grow hut, and it's the same color light that they have a vertical harvest. So it was kind of ironic that we had this global pandemic and this major museum on Fifth Avenue is promoting growing your own sustainable food, right?
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorists beware.
Yeah. Definitely. This is awesome. As I'm scrolling through this, like, there's so many different ways to paint the same building.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Well, it's kind of like, so that one was really special because
This one,
that's
the Eclipse.
2017.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was the artist in residence at Four Seasons Jackson Hole. And so I would set up every week and do a painting in a single session. And so when they had their Eclipse party, I had done the fundamental painting of the Guggenheim with the Tetons, but then I captured the eclipse as it happened. So I had my glasses on and I was doing a sketch with just, a paper and pencil. And as soon as it was done, I painted it. And then the cool thing was, I didn't realize it, but it kind of looked like an arrowhead. And then when I saw all the photographs of it, I was like, whoa, that's cool that it like really was the way it looked.
Yeah.
And you look around, like artists all over the place just captured just some unbelievable stuff. The owner of Rare Gallery, his photographs from the Cowboy Bar, he was up on the roof. Unbelievable. Just some of the most stunning stuff.
I've not seen those. What's his name?
Oh, gosh. Please don't hate me for this. I'm totally blanking. He's like a total legend here. He was a huge skiing legend. Like, I mean, absolute, like, total stud. And so, yeah, it's his photograph, and it's just really something else.
I wonder
Like,
if that would, no. Oh, they need to update their website. Rare Gallery. Click here. Their tour does not work. Their 2-page does not work.
try the artists. Yeah. It'll come. I'm gonna feel like such an idiot for. It's gonna be like probably some photograph and.
These like the
Oh,
famous.
there he is! Boom, right there. Yeah, so he goes by Kivy, but his actual name is something different, and I feel like such a jerk for forgetting it. I owe you a beer. But
That
like, how
one?
sick
Oh
is that?
my god, that's insane. People were looking at the actual Cowboy Bar sign with the eclipse like right above the Cowboy's head.
Yeah, he was right up on the roof, and and the thing is, it's like just it's amazing what he captured. This is my favorite. I love this. The people there, just like that to me is like complete legend status. Like,
and that's at like noon, right? That was like
Yes.
full eclipse was about noon.
yeah, it was. And the weirdest thing was, so we were up at Peast, on the top of the pass or on top of the Teton Resort or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just remember we were standing there, and all of a sudden you could see this blanket of black
Yeah.
just enshrouding the valley, and you could just hear everyone. I've never heard this in my life. Just an audible like gasp. They were like,
Yeah.
but like 500 people did it at the same time. It was
Whoa.
amazing. And I remember that, and you're up there, and all of a sudden it's feeling like 20 degrees colder,
Yeah.
and everybody's just like gasping, and you could hear a pin drop. It was so remarkable, and my brother Tim was there with me. It was like such a special moment.
Yeah.
And then I think like one terrace over, like there was like DiCaprio and a whole bunch of guys from Mad Men and stuff just
shit,
watching.
really?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a serial opportunist, so of course I'm jumping all like, hey, what's up, boys?
Yeah, definitely.
Leo, about to paint.
Yeah. That's awesome. That was an incredible event. I was actually I didn't live here then, but I was here the week after, and it was like so insanely busy because people were all convening here in the valley, and then they were like the week after they were like on the way out. So like Grand Teton and Yellowstone were so incredibly packed.
Oh, you've never seen anything like it. And businesses were out of control. Like, our local like brew pubs, our local restaurants, they changed their entire format. Yeah. It was this idea that this was like the great gold rush of the Tetons. And like, cause it was going to be prime place, prime viewing. And people just like, they literally spent a fortune for it. And a lot of people, they just didn't see the masses that they were expecting. So it was really hard on some people.
Yeah.
And, it's like the locals, like when you go to if you go to Snake River Brewing, like you want to know, like, hey, I'm going to go sit at my stool. I'm going to get what I want. You don't want to get like a bracelet in the parking lot and come in. It's like, you want to just do your thing. And, but it's remarkable. And if you look at the populace now, and if this happened in 2021, it'd be crazy. I mean, like people are buying stuff off the internet sight unseen and coming in and just boom, snap it up.
Yeah.
It's good for my realtor collectors, and I'm very grateful for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a little bit, as someone who hopes to own a home here someday, like it's a little bit terrifying to hear what's going on and like how much people are overpricing the offers without even seeing the houses. And I'm like, I could maybe do $1 million one day if I like work really hard and save up and everything like that. But $3 million, I don't know. It's like that. It's a little bit. It's a little bit scary.
But you have to realize something. And as a guy who spent a lot of time in New York City, what happens is the catalysts for any hot market are the creatives. So you have your artists, you have your painters, you have your musicians, then you have your coffee shops, your cool bars, your restaurants. They create a scene. And what happened was like Soho, it used to be like, and I hope this is okay to say, but like it would be like people with one sink taking horse baths, like basically just being like, okay, guys, there's like 10 of us, and they have a 10,000 square foot loft in Soho that used to be a factory where you could probably get shot walking outside. But all of a sudden, you get the classic gentrification, and everybody moves in, and people start recognizing the property value. They buy it up, they push the artists out, and that's how the artists in New York created Brooklyn, and then they created Queens, and then eventually they're pushing them out to upstate New York. But no matter what, follow the artists. You follow the creatives. You follow the people who are inspired entrepreneurs. So all this to say is that no matter what, you'll find a place, and that place will be awesome. And once you get a lot of people coming in, buying, and it's just people who just have a lot of money and they want second or third homes, that's fine. They worked hard for it. They're entitled to it. But you know what? The cool places are always going to be where the creatives are.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Let's pull it back to when you decided to follow your calling and be a painter. Had you like done some stuff on the side as like a hobby before that, or like out of the blue you're just like, I need to figure out how to paint because I think I want to do it? Like, how did that go?
I'm seeing it in my kids. So I have a 4-year-old, 6 and a 7-year-old, and I'm seeing it with them. It was the same for me. My mom was an art school dropout and then became a school nurse. She was like competitive aerobic instructor. She was on the Crystal Light tournament and stuff on TV. It was awesome. Rad woman. And she got me into painting very early. And I the first thing I ever painted, I was like 2 years old, and I painted a wooden bunny. And that kind of set off a chain of events that just changed my life. Like I was all about just painting and drawing, and most of my school years all the way through college from elementary school, I would get better grades because I do like a wicked drawing or a painting with it, and it's like, the paper's garbage, but great illustrations, B-, and I'm like, yeah. So I loved it. In 6th grade, in 9th grade, I talked my way into the AP art class, and my teacher, Ms. Livesey, literally changed my life. I was doing live figure drawings with models at 13. I took the AP art exam in 11th grade, 12th grade. She had us meet with all these counselors from different art schools, and it was just incredible. I went to school for athletics, so I ran cross-country indoor and outdoor track at Boston University. Nice. So I wanted to be a competitive athlete, but they also had a good art program. I was looking at like Duke, NC State, Tennessee, a whole bunch of stuff. But then, I jumped into the real world, and it's not pragmatic to be a painter. And, especially when I graduated, I mean, when I matriculated, they were giving signing bonuses to graphic designers because I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic Design. And when I finished, it was, 2002, the bubble, the internet bubble, and I couldn't get a job at Blockbuster. So that's how I ended up in reality TV and stand-up comedy and all that stuff. But in all my corporate jobs, whenever I was homesick or I had insomnia, I would paint. And I would just paint and paint. I kept sketchbooks. And it was I was 2009 on the beach in Maui with my then girlfriend, now wife. And I just said to myself, I was painting on the beach, drinking beer, sampling some local produce, and I was like, dude, I'm done. I gotta live my passion. And so I gave 6 weeks. I was a business director in that agency, left, and it's been painting ever since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it when people, there's plenty of people who those corporate jobs are like actually their calling, or it fits the lifestyle they want. All that stuff is great. But when you can go through that and learn what you don't want to do, and then that leads you into what you do want to do. And I think you become more successful once you know the knots, right?
100%.
Because there's some people might second guess. If you were like painting, you're like, well, but like I can make more money being working at an ad agency right now, maybe.
Totally.
So it could be some of that doubt, but you already knew that wasn't it.
You get I never stayed at a job for more than 2 years, and you get what's called golden handcuffs. You get paid too much to leave. You become accustomed to a lifestyle, and you never realize what you want to do. But I have to say, I think that the most important thing that is completely neglected in the education cycle today is mentorship. And I think a lot of people who are aspiring and they're trying to become great, they do have mentors, but I would encourage anybody in the world to get a mentor. I have one, this gentleman named Robert up in Montreal, and he's opened more doors for me than I like. Like I almost tear up when I think of this guy. He's my Medici. He's like been just the catalyst for my career. And now I mentor a bunch of artists, and I think it's so important because these are young people, and a mentor helps guide you through mistakes they've made. You avoid mistakes. You make good moves. They give you good advice. And you know what? Like 99 out of 100 piece of advice is going to be great. One's going to be off, but I would take those odds any day of the week.
Yeah, definitely. My current, so I was telling you, in my day job, I sell software to banks for a big tech company called FIS. My manager has really taken on that mentor role where she's been at the company for 40 years.
Amazing.
And has been in sales for 30 of them. And so she knows these clients. She's had these clients before in different roles, and she knows all the technology and stuff. So like, she's really, Kathy David, if you're listening, shout out to you.
Shout out to you, Kathy.
Yeah. She's really taken me under her wing, and like I've come so far from the first day I started under her, and it was like right away. It was like different than any other manager I've had. It was like the day that a different manager said, "Oh yeah, you're under Kathy now."
Yeah.
She was like sent me like 8 meeting invites for all these things we were doing already, and she was like, "All right, well, you're on my team. We're gonna go. I'm gonna guide you through it. We're gonna kick ass. It's gonna be great. Just like learn and be ready to like jump into stuff."
People you love, great teachers and great mentors. They're just the best people.
Yeah.
And like I can't tell you how many like these people that come along and they're willing to share their knowledge with you. It's incredible. Yeah. And you take that and you run with it. And you know what? Kudos to her because she recognized something in you. And not only are you working this software job, which is very complicated stuff for what little I know about tech development, but I mean, here you are, you're doing all this stuff. Like you could be sitting on the couch doing nothing and you're doing a podcast at night. You're running this other agency. I mean, dude, that's the recipe for success.
Yeah. It's sometimes tough, but I'm trying.
You got to keep, you know what, dude?
Definitely.
You grind it through.
Yeah.
You just have to do it, man. And it's like, but it's so worth it
Yeah.
because otherwise, like all those hours you'd be doing other things, you won't remember them. You'll remember doing stuff like this for the rest of your life.
I know. I go back and listen to the episodes, like after a while goes by, and just to remember like the conversations and to kind of do a little bit, say like, how did I sound? Kind of change how I ask questions, that kind of stuff, and just be like, oh, I had a lot of fun with that person. Because this would be episode 58. And some of them with friends I already had, a lot of them with new people that I just message, like I message you saying, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And that's kind of like why I do it, is because if I just messaged you, well, maybe you would, because you seem like you would do this. But if I just messaged you out of the blue without a podcast and said, hey, do you want to like get a beer and just chat one day?
Sure.
Like that'd be weird for a lot of people.
That's definitely that's in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. But a lot of people like wouldn't say yes to that.
Right.
And then because I really like business and I like that entrepreneurship, I can attach it to people trying to do that kind of stuff.
Totally.
And help them out while also hearing, learning about a new person, learning about a business I might be interested in. All that stuff. It's just cool, like multi-level reasons that I do it.
But that's, and the more you interact with people, it's amazing. The one thing I found that was very fascinating is that when I was in all those jobs, right? So when I was in real estate development or when I was in advertising or recruiting, I had to like really knock down some doors to get some meetings, and I really did some grinding. I would call like an executive creative director at a major agency, and it would take me 10 calls to get a lunch, and then you sit down with them and they're very busy and they're like, all right, what do you want? And then years later, I'm a painter, and then, I'm selling paintings to billionaires and, famous celebrities, and they're like super excited to talk to you, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it taught me a great lesson about perspective. It's like you can be whoever you want, but if you're not projecting your best self and your most essential self, you're not going to make those connections. So the more authentic you are to yourself, the more people are going to want to be around you, which is amazing.
Definitely. Yeah. I was going to say, on the mentorship thing, I wanted to touch on something. I got the opportunity last summer to have an intern under me at the tech job, and I went into it thinking like, oh, I don't really want to be like have somebody report to me because I don't want to like have to worry about them. But once I got into it, it was so fulfilling to like see them, give them some direction, and kind of help them, see the process of them opening up. And this is the guy's name was Max. So if he's listening, shout out to you too. The way he opened up, because he comes in nervous and shy like any intern would.
Of course.
Trying to just, not say a lot and just listen and all that good stuff. And then as we got more comfortable with each other, and like he had some success doing the stuff that we worked on, it was really, really fulfilling to see that process. And which was unexpected for me. I didn't think I would get that much out of it, but I love it. And then we're even at the point in the marketing business that we hired a couple people, and being able to mentor them and get them, and it's a good way for me to look back on everything that I've learned in the process, because you think you start day one and you know how to post to social media, but there's so many little quirks and things that I've now taught Julia about just how to do it, what kind of hashtags, what kind of video, all this, content stuff that you don't think in the beginning matters as much, but we've learned, and it's a good way to look back and be like, oh, we have picked some stuff up as we do this. We do know what we're doing, and it's showing now when she goes and does stuff with our mentorship, and it's successful.
It's huge. And really, everybody who is inspired and is passionate should really take a turn at not only, being a mentee, but being a mentor, and also, taking someone under your wing and actually being a boss and teaching them, because, you look at your job, like I look at my studio, I'm still a one-man operation like 12 years later. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I bring someone on, but then I look at all the stuff that I can offset and teach them. And like one of my bosses, Jason, he was another Jason. Jason's all over the place, and he was such a meticulous boss. And when I did something wrong, it was a closed door meeting, and he'd walk me through it, and he'd tell me. And he was so on point that I learned not to make mistakes. Yeah. And then I got more and more of a longer leash, and I was able to do things on my own, and I became more autonomous because he spent so much time with me establishing the protocol, establishing what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And, again, it's like that high school art teacher, a college art professor, Jason, these collector mentors. I mean, it's worth more than gold.
Yeah. There's a saying or something about like a good coach will, when you do something good, they'll praise you out in the open. And then when you do something bad, they'll correct you in private.
Totally.
Is like, you see, I notice it. I grew up playing a lot of sports, and I played football in college, and you notice the difference between good coaches and bad coaches. You're right.
Oh, it's stark. And my dad was a track coach for 37 years. Yeah. Steve Borbay. He's in the high school track and field Hall of Fame. Total sick. Legend. And same thing. He's very fair to his athletes, and I learned that growing up. And if I did something wrong, people told me, and I learned. And I think that's important. I impart that on my kids as well.
Yeah. Sports are so important for just like development. Like the way that I know now how to lose and come back with, some more, lose and figure out what I did wrong and get better at that thing and be okay with the losing. It hurts. It always stings. Losing a deal, losing a client, whatever, losing a potential buyer. Like it always stings, and that's okay. But then it's a learned thing to go back and be like, okay, what can we do better next time? What can I do differently? And then come back around and then, to be better and win in the future. And I think you picked that up. Maybe in like martial arts, you picked that up probably too, but sports is probably the most common place to pick that up.
I mean, yeah, I'm talking about a relationship. And like, like I said, like I look back at like friendships that I've lost and, a whole variety of other different things. And I've learned more from often than things that went wrong than things went right. So,
yeah, the two experiences that we have had that were like kind of negative got us definitely way closer to the point of like reverse interviewing. And it's more of like we're just trying to figure out, will they just trust us? Because we have really good examples to rely on. So we know Alex and I do this a lot where we're like, okay, this didn't go how we wanted it to. Why didn't it do that? What could we have done differently? And it's not that we don't know what we're doing, because like we have great relationships with Chaz and Trav. It still works with the Chaz and Trav and the leaders of all of our other clients. Like they fucking love us. Like, so my stepdad runs our construction company client, and they do like schools and hospitals and government buildings, like big shit like that.
Cool.
And so we're doing like, we started with like, all right, we'll teach them how to do social media, Google ads, how to do some content creation, content creating calendars, kind of the basics of like doing digital marketing.
Sure. Started
there. And then we go and he's like, hey, you guys do, Alex actually works for the same tech company as I do. You guys do sales a lot. You guys are in sales, like, it but more than like most of my guys, because they didn't have a background in sales. Could you guys do some sales training for us? So now we're going and doing sales training for his entire management staff that are interacting with his clients.
Great.
We did 2 different sessions of that, of like an hour-long presentation, and then now we're like going back and rephrasing, reworking all of any place that they have like their services documented, and like figuring out a better way to show how they mesh together and all this stuff. So he has full trust in our ability to do more than what we even initially signed up for. So
right.
we're trying to think like, okay, we're doing great here, we're doing great there, we're doing great there, we're doing great there. They all love us, they trust us, we're doing really good work. Why did that person not trust us? Why did that person not let us do the thing that we're having success everywhere else?
You know what? Different strokes for different swimmers. And, the whole lead a horse to water type of thing. But, like a lot of times when you start a company with one idea, and then how you connect and what resonates can completely change.
Yeah.
And so like, you have this idea, you're like, all right, we're going to be a media agency. But you know what? If you start doing sales training and you're killing it, then it could be an entirely different offering. And specificity is everything. You go out there and you're able to say like, you know what? We're a media agency and we have a very strong sales training division. And you go into a company and they're like, you know what? That's really helpful. I mean, I worked in recruiting and I didn't know anything about recruiting. I just went in and I started in our database, which was like 15 years old. And I started on A, and I called every single number in the database.
Yeah.
I got a lot of like, take a hikes. I got a lot of people reverse trying to sell me because they're like, you're terrible at sales. And then by the time I got to D, I had a entirely self-sustaining business running. And it's like these brutal things like cold calls. How do you do it? How do you just relate to someone? You're calling someone that doesn't want to hear from you. Yeah. It's like, hey, we could forgive your student loan, or let's talk about your car lease. And you just want to be like, I just want to do bad things to you because this is really irritating. And I was that person.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. And it was a huge skill. And I'm really glad I did it. In fact, I think everybody should cold call for a period of their life, because
they should.
You'll have more sympathy for people who cold call you. And also, it's just the most brutal thing. And, but, so like, if you guys happen to be awesome at training people in sales, trust me, you can make a killing. I know this guy up in New York. He runs this company, FPC, and they literally train recruiters to recruit people. They don't recruit. They just train recruiters.
Yeah.
And they're extremely successful, and they're wonderful people. And, salespeople need training, and a lot of people neglect that. They're like, here's a phone, here's a phone book, call all these people and sell some stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need scripts, you need protocol, you need process, rhythm, pacing. You need to do your due diligence. And today, I mean, everybody puts everything out there, so you might as well know. I'm not saying call up and be like, hi, I saw that you had a really great weekend at your daughter's wedding in Chicago. That's a really nice country club, by the way. So, and then try to sell them something like,
Well, your daughter's so pretty.
yeah, it's like, wow, the flower arrangement was spectacular. Speaking of, I have a construction deal we should discuss. So it's a fine line, but I think you should just keep an eye out for that, because you build a business with one idea, and then the reality of the marketplace might shift you somewhere else.
No, yeah, it's definitely something we've considered. It's just getting it out there, I guess. We're totally cool, like, doing whatever people want us to do that's within our wheelhouse, right?
Absolutely.
Like, if we end up being a sales trainer, we could be sales trainers. That'd be fine.
And data metrics, and it's all about, keeping track of what you're doing. So it's like, hey, if we're going to do a sales training project, let's just figure out what you're doing volume wise for the past 6 months. And then let's see what happens in the next 6 months after a 1 month period of training. And if you're noticing quantifiable results that are very much positive, then you take that right to your next client. And that's the most important thing, because people love numbers. They love metrics. They love likes. They love, hearts.
That's an issue in sales orgs right now, because they're so KPI motivated, where it's like, but it's not always the best KPIs. There's all these people on salesperson social media, where they always make jokes about managers only caring about like dials, and in my business it's called an opportunity if you open a deal,
right?
And like opportunities open, and like all that stuff, because they need to report that up to somebody else, who reports it to somebody else, who reports it to somebody else, who eventually gets to like head of sales, who says like, oh, we're making a lot of dials, or like putting notes in when you just called someone, left a voicemail. Like, that doesn't matter. Sales is a results business. Like,
yes.
The signed contract matters. Now, on the contrary though, if that's not happening, you need to have some activity to show that you're not just sitting in your ass.
Right.
Right. And that's important too. But good sales managers, when they have people that are kicking ass and they are selling things, kind of, they let them do. They don't need to. They're not on their back.
Oh, you unleash them and you just let them go.
That's their job.
If they work for 2 hours a day in a call room and spend the rest of the day at a bar, who cares?
Yeah.
As long as you're crushing. So I'm nodding like an idiot over here, but I actually don't know what KPI stands for. So please educate.
Key performance indicator.
Okay, cool. Because I was like kills per interaction. What's like?
No, it's just like whatever they pick as their most important statistic or metric that they want to follow.
So that makes sense. I try to make a habit of like asking questions when I don't know something. I'm like, KPI. I'm like, oh yes, KPI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for like a social media account, KPI would be like followers and likes.
Sure.
Most important things.
It's funny. I did a portrait of someone, and it's like it's an anonymous painting that I can't really divulge details, but it was a prolific person on Twitter, and one of the things I decided was that
was it Alex Jones?
No, it wasn't Alex Jones, and I'm not going to tell you. But so basically, I decided, I was like, okay, so I'm going to curate a lot of the content for this collage painting based on Twitter. So I thought, I was like, to me, the most important metric, I think, was retweets, because this is what's spreading the information across the internet, Mm-hmm. And so all the stuff that I did, I curated based on retweets alone. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, to me, that's the most meaningful interaction. And dude, I've been on Twitter for, I don't even know, like since the beginning of Twitter. And I have only like 2,300 something followers, or I don't even know, probably less than that now. And I'm verified, all this stuff. And it's like, when Twitter started out, like I would have like 40 followers, and I'd, put a painting process out, and it'd be retweeted by like 100 people. And now it's like, I put it out, it's like a drop in the woods. It's like, I feel like Twitter became like this, like kind of minefield for, like they just want you to say something salacious so they can throw you under the bus, dox you out, and call it a day. And so I'm like leaning away from social. I'm 40 years old. I just kind of like, social's been amazing to me. I mean, like Jack Dorsey's a collector, and I'm very grateful for that. And, Twitter's been awesome. I've made a lot of business off Twitter. It's just, you see this kind of hostility in social. And I think that as someone who's working in marketing and social media, it's a dangerous space, because you could say one wrong thing. I mean, like the Raiders, that whole tweet that they put out. I mean, it was like
for the Derek Chauvin thing.
Yes.
That was very, what do they call that?
cringeworthy faux pas. It was just tough. It was tough.
It was tough that the person who posted it or suggested they post it, because I don't know when you were in your ad agency phase or if social media was around, but I know that post was probably planned when the trial started. Right? 2 weeks or so before the post went out, because they were like, all right, like, great, he'll probably get the guilty charge, and we'll do a post about it because we want to, support justice or whatever their reasoning was. So somebody had to plan that, get it approved by somebody, create the graphic, which wasn't a crazy graphic, but they still had to create it.
Sure, of course.
Probably wasn't the person that suggested it either. Probably was a graphic designer, because they probably have a big firm.
Of course.
So there's probably like 5 people that had the opportunity to say, let's not do this.
I agree.
And that's what made me cringe, because like, oh, I know the process that went through, and it still got through.
Well, there's a hierarchy, and here's the thing. It's, and again, this comes back to the salacious nature of social media. It's like, any conversation's a good conversation, but I've seen people completely eviscerated. Like Patton Oswalt destroyed this realtor. I don't even remember over what, but I think his name was Tony Brust or Rust or something. I still remember it because I was reading it and I was like, wow, he just destroyed this guy. And so like I've really adopted a very like kind of minimalist social media presence. And and I think for young people, it's important for them to realize, like, this stuff goes out. And don't get me wrong, I said dumb things like when I was young. We all did,
Yeah,
and it's like,
I did too, yeah.
But imagine, so I started college in 1998, and like I'm really glad that people weren't walking around, with cameras in their hands and filming me doing stupid stuff, because I did a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And and that's the hardest thing, because you want attention and you want engagements, but not at the detriment of your brand and who you are. So, now it's like I just post very minimally across my platforms. I didn't get into TikTok, and I know this is like, again, I'm sounding like a dinosaur. And, I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I have Facebook, I have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really just a platform for people to pat themselves on the back. They're like, oh, I was walking past this guy the other day. He was down on his luck and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, haha, it's all about this. And everyone's like, all right. And that's fine,
Yeah.
But, I think it's just kind of like I put my paintings out, and if you like them, you do. And if you think they are terrible, then that's fine.
Yeah, it's been a learning process for me to, listening to a lot of really, a lot of Gary Vee stuff, a lot of those kinds of guys, and like, because so many people that not really have a voice, people that are just making noise, they say that social media is bad in its nature, right? It's not, and I would disagree that it's not bad in its nature. It just shows people that are bad and that don't have like, a clear, I don't know, this may sound weird, but like a clear heart. Like if they're trying to do malice in the world and talk shit about people, like that's going to show easier on social media because they don't have that connection. Like even if I didn't like, I like you, but even if I didn't like you, I wouldn't talk shit to you like this, right? No, you're awesome. I couldn't talk shit to you like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the people who want to talk shit, they're cowards anyways, so they do it behind a screen.
Like would you walk up to someone and say what you're about to tweet? You should always think that.
Yeah.
And then every time I'm about to send anything out on social media, I think to myself, I wait like 20 minutes, and I'm like, what could go wrong here? Who could I offend? How could I upset someone? How could I portray myself in the wrong way? Yeah. And it's not about like, I don't want to upset people. Like you have to be your authentic self, and everybody says stuff that's going to be, contrary to other people's beliefs and happiness. But, I just, if you really sit down and think about what you're like, oh, I came up with something clever and you want to put it out, wait 10 minutes. And then you look back and you're like, oh man, I could get killed. Like I've called so many of my friends that I've seen, like, like really successful, great people and like family people. And they'll send out a tweet, in the middle of a maelstrom, which literally is all the time now. Like we're so aware of all the horrible things happening in the world that if you don't share on social media when something bad is happening, you will never speak, because the world it's a difficult place and we're aware of it. It's always been difficult. You imagine if they had Twitter during the Black Plague.
Yeah.
They'd be like, yo, homie died up on the street, and he's like, oh, well, I'm dead too. And then someone's like, oh, I got his phone. Oh, I'm dead too. Like, I mean, it would be awful. And we're just aware of all that, like.
Yeah, and that plays into the algorithms too. They've built the algorithms to react more to negative feelings and negative stories.
Absolutely.
Than positivity. And it's not really the fault of of the algorithm creators because, like, you know, Jack was trying to make a business out of it, and that's how you get users, and that's how you get funding and all that stuff.
Right.
That's how you get that. It's people not understanding the game of the algorithm and falling into the trap of it somewhat. I don't even really mean trap derogatorily because the algorithm is the algorithm. It's meant to create users, create activity, and then pull your information for advertisers.
Well, once you
That's
have
what it's for.
shareholders and, you know, it's like you started out as an idealistic platform that's just about like putting your voice out there. And then, you know, it's okay to make money and it's okay to be successful. Like you look at Bob Dylan, I think he spent, you know, he sold his catalog for $330 million, right? He's doing IBM commercials. And then you look at like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, they sold their catalog for $160 million. You know what I say? Good for you, bud. Like you worked hard. You had you had a rock star lifestyle, so it's like I'm not really sad for you, like most people think, but I'm like, you know, they worked. I mean, that's intellectual property. They created gold. They created memories. They created experiences. They deserve that money. And like, I retain the intellectual property to all my paintings. Now I'm in the NFT space, but I'm doing something different to figure this out. And in the end, when I put my catalog up there, that's the legacy for my children, and it's going to be worth a lot of money. And I'm going to realize those profits, and it's going to go all invested, variety of different avenues, so that, you know, they can go out and do what they want in their lives.
Yeah, definitely. The people, anybody who's rich, somebody had to work their ass off to get that at some point, whether that's you first, like, I'm not saying you as in Borbay, like you just the you in front of me. A first generation rich person, like you started a business, it blew up, you got rich. First generation, you had to work your ass off to do that. Or even if you're like your grandpa's grandpa was loaded, you know, that he had to bust his ass to get rich.
Totally.
And obviously you didn't have to do it, and that's why people don't like that. But somebody had to bust their ass to get all of the wealth that's ever been.
Totally. And
had to kill somebody in the back, way back.
Yeah, look, you know, like the whole honest million billionaire thing. I mean, like, look, you know, I am beyond grateful for successful people because I don't exist without them. I don't, you know, and like I have very successful benefactors, and I have people who drive in the flashiest cars and have like 12 houses, and I have people that you never know that they're worth $700 million or $1 billion. Like, but it doesn't matter. It's like it all comes down to the person, you know, and it's easy to deride someone who's successful or wealthy. And yes, if it's first generation or generational wealth or, you know, quote unquote old money.
Yeah.
An artist, I create single frame images in an age of technological glory.
Yeah.
And I paint. It takes me like months to do a painting. If someone appreciates that enough to pay good money, insure it, put it on their wall, and cherish it, like. I'm never going to talk down to that.
Yeah. On that note, let's talk about NFTs.
Non-fungible tokens.
Non-fungible tokens. Okay. So I've had a lot. This has become like super a huge trend in the last like month to 2 months. Every billionaire is talking about it. Every crypto guy, every Forex douche is talking about it. Everybody's talking about it who wants to make a quick buck. So, for those that listening that don't know, Borbay, tell them what an NFT is.
Okay, so an NFT is basically the realization of someone named Robert Rauschenberg's vision for artists back in the 60s. So what happened, he sold 2 paintings to Ethel and Bob Skull, who were taxi magnates, one for $900, one for $3,000 or $2,000. Then he went to an auction. They turned it around, sold them both for $40,000 a piece. He famously bumped into him, never talked to him again, then went to California, where all the IP laws are set, and tried to lobby for basically an analog blockchain, which is a detailed transaction of who buys a painting or buys a creative piece of work, how much they paid for it, who owns it, and then when it transfers ownership, every time it transfers ownership, the artist would get a percentage, the previous owner would get a percentage, and so on and so forth. So if you think about like that painting in 20 transactions, you know, the person who sold it might only get 10% of the sale, and the artist and the original collector still get percentage of the sales because you see rapid appreciation. So what an NFT is it's on a blockchain. a very popular blockchain is the Ethereum blockchain, and that's where a lot of NFTs are going through OpenSea or Rarible. And basically, what you do is you create an asset, basically, which could be a video, it could be a graphic, it could just be a JPEG. You put it up on the blockchain, you offer it either for auction or for buy it now sale or a set price, and it goes up. People can bid on it, they could buy it. Once they buy it, you transfer that asset specifically to them, and that's it. And you will get 10% or a fixed percentage every time that transacts in perpetuity. It's relying on a lot of things. It's relying on cryptocurrency. And that's extremely volatile. It's relying on the blockchain. It's relying on all these companies to be around for long enough for these assets to still be worth something down the road. So it's a gamble. You could call it a hustle if you want to get all Elon Musk about it. But I say that the NFT experience, which has been around for years, and people who were doing stuff with Giphy, and they're going to run into intellectual property issues because Giphy is owned, I believe, by Google, and eventually it's going to come up, and they were the first people recruited to do NFTs. I think we're going to see it's a revolution. It's exactly what happened to realtors 3 months after the pandemic when they saw an unprecedented wave of people wanting to nest, buy homes, move out of major markets. That's what absolutely blew up the Teton Valley market and blew up the Jackson market. So it's wild, it's crazy, it's difficult to explain, but if you're an artist, a photographer, a videographer, a poet, or any of that, I mean, you have to be involved.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been doing some research on it, but I can't figure out, maybe it's just I'm not on the right websites to do it. Like, say I'm not an artist.
Sure.
But I believe in this idea and I want to profit off of it. If you had something up, like, is there like certain websites where I need to have Ethereum as well, but right, because they're like all bought and sold with Ethereum,
right? Well, so there are different currencies, and the assets are called tokens. And the thing is, the problem is, as it stands right now, is it's still very niche. Like, it's a very high barrier to entry. Yeah. So you have to go and you have to set up like an OpenSea account or a Rarible account. Then you have to go and set up a crypto wallet like MetaMask. So then you have to set up crypto wallet with MetaMask, give them way too much personal data, and then you got to connect it to your bank account. Then you have to do a withdrawal, and then you got to convert your money into, say, Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
So then if you want to post an NFT, you go on to OpenSea, you create it, then you have to pay what's called a gas fee just to get it listed for your first process. So it basically, what it does is it eliminates a lot of creators and it eliminates a lot of people who could potentially be buyers. Eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have a Facebook or a Google. They're going to buy an entire series of sites there, and they're going to lower the barrier to entry so where you could literally go in and just put your credit card. That's what has to happen, because right now it's too crazy. Like, I'm doing a series totally experimental on OpenSea. There was a conceptual artist named An Kawara, who is a Japanese conceptual artist, and one of his major projects was he would do a date painting every day. And so he'd do a paint like APR.12.1974. So
what's the...
It's the site's called OpenSea. So if you go to OpenSea and then go Borbay, it'll pull up. And so basically what I'm doing is like a date experience every day. So it started out as just a graphic, and then it kind of morphed into where I'm doing video clips each day with the date over it. And it's kind of like it's like a phantom ghost experience of my life and what's happening. And it's evolved, so it's like, you take one idea and then it just kind of grows from there. But so what I'm doing with this, and like you can see, like I've literally sold none, and I've done 50